The overall healthcare problem for this presentation is high pharmaceutical prices, and it is by Millie, Jack, Sirin, Jena, and Angel. So the overall healthcare problem is the rise of pharmaceutical prices over the last several years, and this has occurred dramatically, even though in the US we spend around $350 billion just on drugs themselves. And there are multiple reasons for this, such as there has been nationwide back orders, for example, like on Tylenol, children's Motrin, Ozempic can be seen like for weight loss, and Adderall. Some of the reasons is that they are overprescribed, and so there is that rise in demand for these drugs. However, if manufacturers aren't meeting that demand, then there's scarcity in these drugs, and that can overall just lead to higher prices as there is not as much to give to the population.
Hello, this is Jena Haw presenting background on pharmaceutical prices and its company. The first pharmaceutical company was created in 1885, which then jump-started the manufacturing of commercial drugs in the United States. While these companies are extremely important to everyday consumers, they also support over 4.5 million Americans with jobs across the country. This happens through the drugs manufactured on production sites to then be transferred to wholesale distributors and finally stocked at a variety of pharmacies. Unfortunately, while these pharmaceutical companies provide a lot for the US, they have also hurt their consumers with their continuous price increase on these drugs. To quote, on average, drug makers hike list prices by 5%, according to analysis who track the industry. Just over 1,800 drugs saw increases on their list price or wholesale acquisition costs. These price gouges not only affect everyday cold and flu over-the-counter drugs, these also range all the way up to cancer treatments and more. Looking at the graph in the bottom right corner here, you can see how the US pharmaceutical revenue has vastly increased over the years and still continues to this day. Above that graph, you can see a pie chart of all the major pharmaceutical companies in the US today, with the largest being Johnson & Johnson and slowly decreasing from there.
The healthcare agency that is associated with this problem is the FDA, which stands for Food and Drug Administration. Their overall mission is to regulate the safety of drugs, medical devices, and food for the public. So they have their rules and certain requirements to meet the standards of being FDA approved, and they put that on the market. However, they can recall if they feel that what is out there doesn't meet their standards anymore, if they see something that might not meet with their criteria. And that's just the overall dynamic of how they regulate and make sure everything is safe for the public. So they definitely have a say in drugs being put out there and how their regulation goes. So they can definitely make an impact and find a way to maybe lower the prices or offer brands, generics, other things that can be available at a lower price to the public.
My name is Jack, and I'm going to be talking about Dr. Califf a little bit. So he's the key leader of the FDA. He was elected in 2022 by President Joseph Biden. He was also serving, I believe, in 2016, 2017 as the commissioner of the FDA. He's a commissioner of the Food and Drugs Administration, and he also worked with Google. He was actually lead investigator for clinical trials. He tested efficacy of cholesterol-lowering drugs. He's a cardiologist, and he oversees manages other programs with public health, mainly like I just mentioned with Google. And how does he manage the problem? So Dr. Califf, he believes himself that drug prices are way too high. He mentioned this in an article in Newsweek. And additionally, the couple of mechanisms the FDA can use to help lower prescription drug prices. One is approving more generic drugs. This increases competition amongst the commercial and generic drugs, which overall brings prices down. And another method is to negotiate Medicare prices with companies. This is planned for 2026 with the Inflation Reduction Act. And the FDA can use its powers to bring down drug prices commercially with Medicare.
So in this slide, we're going to be talking about Robert M. Cliff and his leadership skills. During one commencement speech that he made, Robert actually talked about community-based approaches and how he believes that in order for any skill or anything they do to work, it has to be community-based. Also, as the FDA commissioner, he is a strong advocate of a team approach. This is important because the FDA is made of subgroups, so he can maximize cohesiveness and collaboration, as we learn in DIE. So he believes that, teamwork is an important skill that you should have, and that leads to a great leader. Also, when he was talking in that speech about public health challenges, he starts with the good improvements and everything good that they've made, and then he leads on to the cons. He coincides with his desire to make change, which is very, very important. We learned that in chapter 10. Since you don't always want to start with the negatives, you want to start with the positives and be like, yo, we've done all these good things, but then we can still do more to better ourselves. When he ends his speech, he reassures the audience that although his issues, these issues are out of the FDA's hands and his hands, that he will try his best to make those changes to move forward in a positive situation. He does this by establishing attainable goals and celebrating his teams and his successes.
So my name is Sirin Halloum, and I'll be discussing how to improve traits as a leader. So first of all, you want to lead by example in the sense that you must be aware of your own weaknesses and strengths in the workforce as well as others. This will help build a cooperative and collaborative environment because you're both able to share and reflect on those weaknesses. Knowing how to take constructive criticism is also very important because it allows you to grow from it and it enables you to set goals for yourself to improve on and focus specifically on the traits or habits that you need to improve and work on. Collaborating with others is obviously very valuable because they can give you the feedback that you need to improve on your negative traits. They can obviously point out specifically what exactly you need to work on and basically help you with the difficult tasks or anything that you're having problems with. Also, accepting feedback in a good spirit is very important because you have to be positive and basically think of it as a big step into improvement instead of a setback on being successful. Being goal oriented as well is very important because it can train you to be setting goals and improving them constantly without staying consistent with where you're at. That way you're constantly improving and learning as you go and not just giving up. And last but not least, these are very important. On the right side here, it talks about democratic leadership, which is basically just taking into account other people's opinions and being a people person, listening to what they have to say, just being inspirational and being influential as well is very important in the workforce. And these are our references.